Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is a first-timer on the show. His name is Jim Piccioni. He is director, actually an owner of one of the Visiting Angels. And first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So tell everybody, we'll get right into it, what Visiting Angels is.
Visiting Angels is a non-medical home care agency. We provide assistance with bathing, dressing, feeding, meal preparation, light housekeeping, errands, medication reminders, and assistance, basically helping that person maintain their routine at home.
I guess you could say that in this day and age, a service like that is becoming more and more necessary, and it's a good thing for you, you know, because it's your company, but it's unfortunate because does that mean that you know, medically, we as a people not doing so good as we get older?
I just think that more and more people want to stay at home as they get older. You see a trend
Good point.
Actually decreasing of people going into nursing homes. Nobody wants to end up in a nursing home when they work so hard all their life to have their home and everything in it, and that's where they want to stay. If you think about it, right now there's 37 million seniors living in the U.S.
That's a huge number.
That's a huge number. In the next 2 decades, that's going to climb to over 70 million. Every 13 seconds, there's somebody turning 65 in this country.
Yeah, we're becoming old, right? You know,
Absolutely.
So obviously, a service like this is more necessary than ever. And you know, I'm trying to think back to, you know, this is this as a service, not just for Visiting Angels, but this as a service is something that's evolved, I would imagine, and been tweaked to where, like you said, in this day and age, people want to be home for as long in their lives as they can until it's absolutely necessary to go into something like a nursing home, right?
Absolutely, until the level of care necessary for somebody turns into something where it requires an amount of medical service that can't be performed in their home. That's what we're there for. We're there for to keep people at home as long as possible, and not just keep them at home, provide that quality of life too, to help them stick to their routine as closely as possible, to provide, for example, palliative care if they're suffering from a disease, whether it's curable or not, to provide that relief from suffering.
Right.
So we're there to keep people at home as long as possible. That's why we exist.
You know, it just popped into my head, all the bad weather we've had in recent times. That's got to be useful for them too, where you actually have the ability to be able to help them more when they certainly can't. I mean, it's tough enough for a regular person to get out during hurricanes and superstorms and blizzards, but for a senior who is less mobile, Visiting Angels helps them even more so, right?
Yes. Our Visiting Angels caregivers go into people's homes, and often those people cannot get out on their own or just don't want to get out to do those things, and our caregivers can go run errands for them or take them to run errands if they need be. Do banking, medical appointments, things like that, things they normally would have had a lot more difficulty achieving had they not had somebody to come assist them.
How about things inside the house? Cooking, cleaning, those sorts of things? Or is that sort of outside your venue a little bit?
No, Visiting Angels also provides cooking, light housekeeping, generally maintaining the areas that person typically uses in their home. And also just safety monitoring for somebody who's at risk of falling, knowing that the number one cause of death amongst people over 65 in this country is an injury due to a fall. We can provide them with safety monitoring so they just don't suffer a fall while they're performing their regular daily routine.
Is Visiting Angels a good idea for a family member that discovers that it is becoming more and more difficult for either them alone or them at all to do what they have been doing with the senior, and that's where Visiting Angels comes in, I would imagine, right?
Oh, you mean a family member providing care? Yes, typically, and that's typically who we'll get a call from.
It's the family member. Yeah.
Most people receiving care in this country are getting care from a family member. What eventually happens is they get burned out. They're also trying to work a job, sometimes trying to take care of children and a family and maintain a home, and now they find themselves switching roles and also trying to take care of a family member at the same time, and they get burnout. So that's where we can come in. Visiting Angels comes in and provides them with that relief, that respite, where they have the freedom now to pretty much do the things they still need to do to maintain their life also, but have that peace of mind that their mother, their father, their grandmother, or what have you, is taken care of properly, and is safe, and they can sleep at night knowing that there's somebody there.
Yeah, and I would not only peace of mind, but a better state of mind for them in the sense that, you know, if it gets too much for them, you know, their personality, their disposition, not only can they get ornery or angry, but maybe, you know, they begin to struggle, you know, with their job or something like that because they just can't attend to everything they want to. So, I mean,
We
it's
encounter
perfect.
that often. The people who call us are at that point where they're becoming frustrated, sometimes even resentful because
Sure,
they're
yeah.
trying to live two lives at this point. So they call visiting angels. We come in and we will do an assessment of relevant needs for that person, their medical condition, and more so their personality
Yes.
and their routine, the things they like and they don't like, and then we will match up a caregiver with them.
When someone calls you initially, what kind of questions do they ask you? What are they most concerned about if they're thinking about having you come in?
They're most concerned about our agency being able to provide the services that they need.
Specifically for their...
They know we're not a medical agency,
Right.
but they want to make sure that we can do all the things that are necessary to take care of their loved one. Another one is price.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is one of their big concerns, and with good reason. They want to know what it costs. It's very affordable, but they need to know that. And then they want to know about our hiring practices. They want to know about the people we're going to send to their homes.
Sure, because you, Visiting Angels, I'm sure, vets and does background checks on your own people, and then secondarily, that person, the person doing the hiring, probably wants to get to know you in person and kind of feel you out, maybe get some kind of a vibe from the people that would be coming in. Right?
Absolutely, we require references. We require experience. Those references have to relate to that experience. We also do a comprehensive nationwide criminal background check
These are all your staff.
on
right?
on all our employees. And once a year, if they haven't left the state of Connecticut, we'll do a Connecticut background check. And then our policy is also select your caregiver. We will bring a caregiver prior to starting care and allow the person to interview that caregiver.
Good, that's a good idea. Yeah, they can certainly get a peace of mind from that. You know.
Sure. Well, Visiting Angels wants to know that that person feels comfortable having this stranger come into their home. As much as we have confidence in our caregivers and we know they're very capable and experienced and that we vetted them thoroughly, we want this person that's going to be receiving care from us to also feel that comfort level.
Let me ask you a question and turn it around. Now you were being vetted by the people that bring you into their home, understandable. But when you accept, you know, a client, there's certain criteria, because we already know that, you know, you're not medical, so that you can't do that. So there has to be, I would imagine, a certain criteria that would make what you do appropriate for that person as well, right?
Yes, yes. If they're what's called chronic and stable, meaning that they have ongoing medical issues, but their doctor hasn't recommended that they be in a nursing facility and that they're able to be at home and receive care, that care still has to consist of manageable, non-medical conditions.
Right.
Anything that requires extensive medical attention, we can't provide the assistance with that. Often people try to kind of cross over that balance a little bit, and they're just at a level where they need medical services and we can't provide that. Sometimes when people are bedbound, when they're terminal, when they are just receiving such extensive medical care that it wouldn't be appropriate for us to be in the home. Of course, we have worked extensively with hospice on terminal cases.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah, if they're bedridden that much and they really can't do much, they are pretty much encroaching on the realm of where it's more appropriate for hospice, right?
Yes, yes, and we've worked very close with local hospices on terminal cases where the care recipient is now near the end stages of life and they have a terminal illness, and essentially we will be supervised by a VNA and we'll do everything that's necessary to keep that person comfortable and dignified until they pass.
How about, obviously, you know, Visiting Angels doesn't do anything medical, but are there cases where you may work right alongside, perhaps like a visiting nurse that might come to the house? You're doing your stuff, but the medical needs are being taken care of by someone who's qualified to do that, right? Very often
we may have a schedule that works around a visiting nurse. So there may be, for example, 2 days a week where the care recipient has a visiting nurse come in and provide certain services, and then we take up the slack. Visiting angels will come in the other days of the week and provide the non-medical services. Also provide monitoring for those medical conditions and make notes, so when those visiting nurses come back, they have something they've had somebody elaborate on the person's condition.
So you
while they're
coordinate
away.
closely if
we
there
will
is a
coordinate with
situation.
them.
Yeah.
We just don't cross the line into providing any sort of medical services or assisting with any medical procedures or anything like that.
The amount of time that a staff member from Visiting Angels might be with a client, is it a set time, or is it all dependent on the individual themselves?
It's all dependent on the individual. We don't recommend any sort of set schedule of days or times. It's all based on the individual. We want to know what their needs are, and we will accommodate just about any schedule that they may have. We do have a minimum of 6 hours a week, which could be 2 days a week, 3 hours. But we'll accommodate that all the way up to 24-hour care or live-in care,
Oh, okay.
respite
So even
care.
during the overnights and everything.
Absolutely, or respite care. Differentiating between 24-hour care and live-in care, a 24-hour caregiver would be somewhere, and you'd have somebody awake 24 hours.
Okay, I gotcha.
Live-in care would be for somebody who generally sleeps through the night, who's not bedridden.
But if they need them, they can be woken up and then attend to
Yes,
their needs.
and the caregiver would sleep at night, but they would be there for that person if they woke up, to go to the bathroom, get a drink. But generally, if you have a person that's up all hours of the night, then it wouldn't be appropriate for live-in care.
Right, right. In this, I find myself asking the question a lot. In the economy that we're in now, something like Visiting Angels, the recession that we were in and that we're maybe coming out of at this point, does that have an effect on a profession like yours, where they may want to be able to utilize your services, but it may be down on their list of priorities a little bit as far as what they feel is affordable for them?
Well, I think the economy has had a little bit of an effect. I think that some seniors who have saved all their life and depending where they had their money, found themselves in a position where they didn't have as much money as they thought they would have. So now they're probably going to get a little bit less care. The upside to the home care is that it hasn't gone up in cost much. Over the last 5 years, 1%. It's gone up in cost, as opposed to nursing homes that have gone up close to 5% over the last, or over 5% over the last 5 years.
Because that's medical, right?
That's medical. And it's still very affordable. You know, an average of maybe 4 hours a day, 5 days a week would end up costing you approximately $19,000 a year. Average cost is $19 an hour. Very affordable if you consider what the alternative would be.
Yeah. Is there any, can this be covered under anybody's insurance plans or anything like that?
There are different insurances that have home care provisions. Right now, we don't process any major insurance carriers, although we do process any long-term care insurance coverage. Long-term care insurance coverage would end up being a reimbursement for somebody. We will process all the paperwork, and they will get reimbursed for all the service that they receive under the terms of their policy. Other than that, we're all out of pocket.
Right. But the fact that some long-term care is possible for it, presents avenues, financial avenues for people to at least look into and possibly pursue, which could be a relief for somebody's wallet per se.
Yes, because most long-term care insurance policies will have the home care provision. They also have a nursing care provision. Most people will opt for the home care provision initially if they can.
Sure.
But the whole idea is for them to stay at home, for them to not end up going into a nursing home until it's absolutely necessary.
So Visiting Angels is a franchise, correct? So
yes, it is.
So it's like everywhere, and there's a bunch even in the local Rhode Island, Connecticut area, right?
Yes, there, if I'm not mistaken, 6 in Connecticut. A gentleman from Madison, Connecticut actually helped start Visiting Angels.
No kidding. Can you talk about how it came about, how it started?
I couldn't verse you on all the details, but I know a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey Johnson who worked in a similar type of field, and also started a similar type of business when he saw the need for it.
Sure.
Back in the late 80s and early 90s. And then in 1997, Jeffrey Johnson from Madison, Connecticut, and Larry Meigs, I'm not sure where he is from, started Visiting Angels. And now there's over 450 of them
Throughout the
in the
country?
United States, throughout the country, and also in Canada under a different name. And if I'm not mistaken, there's also one in Brazil, and they're in South Korea now.
Wow,
too.
so we're talking international.
Yes,
here.
they are.
Wow.
But there's plenty of Visiting Angels offices in Connecticut, and they're in Rhode Island to cover the needs of people.
Right, just locally.
Absolutely.
And if someone should get a hold of you, and if they happen to be in a different part of the state, whether it be Rhode Island or Connecticut, you could certainly steer them to one that might be more appropriate.
We would always refer them to another Visiting Angels office. There's no financial motive for us, but because we want to make sure that they get the service and get it from somebody who's closest, who can do it most efficiently.
The gentleman that you were talking about that brought it together, founded it, Visiting Angels, there had to be, they were thinking in their minds that how that must be an appropriate name for a service like this, right?
I'm not sure how they came up with the name.
It seems pretty like Visiting Angels. Like if you're at home and, a visiting angel just comes to just help you, not do everything, but just help you get through the day. It seems like a perfect name.
I think it is. I think that they picked the perfect name, and I do get a lot of compliments on it also.
Yeah, it's a very, it's sincere, Obviously having a good name, it makes people more comfortable around you. Talk about like the makeup of your staff, about people who go to the homes. It's men, it's women. Do they have a certain sort of a mindset to do this sort of a work where it's almost like they were born to do it? They enjoy doing this kind of work, helping people, helping seniors.
Well, most of our caregivers are female, just because coincidentally 99% of the time our customers will request a female.
No kidding, is that right? Because
most of the time they will request a female, especially if we're caring for a female.
Just natural, they feel more comfortable.
On occasion, though, we will have a request for a male, and we do have male caregivers working. The people we hire, that's part of the hiring process too. What we look for is why they do this type of work. Do they do this type of work simply because they're looking to earn a paycheck, which there's nothing wrong with somebody looking to earn a paycheck.
Right, but I got a feeling that most of your staff, it's not just about being a job. This is the field that they want to be in.
And that's what we look for. We look for people who do this type of work because they like helping people and they enjoy doing this type of work. I think if somebody does any job that they love, they're going to do a much better job.
Absolutely.
And we look for that
about
caring aspect and that enthusiastic aspect for doing this type of work.
You talked about the vetting process before they become part of your staff. What about the training part of it before they go into somebody's home?
Well, initially, we do require the experience, so we do somewhat of an evaluation on them to find out what their skills are. We provide orientation, training in transfer techniques. We do provide training in Alzheimer's care.
Not medical, but at the same time, you're kind of, there are things that you just have to be able to do as a home caregiver, Not medical, though.
Yes, and that is why the references are so important, and the experience that they've done this type of work already before, and they've helped people out. And part of that is just whether they'll look me in the eye when we're having an interview, and their personality and their affect. Whether they genuinely come across as the type of person that enjoys this type of work and likes helping people.
Now, as an owner of a visiting angel, what are you don't really go into the homes, or do you? And what is your day-to-day activities like?
I do go into the
Do you?
homes. Yes, I'm usually the first person that a caller will see. They call Visiting Angels. We will set up an in-home assessment at no cost, no obligation to them. I will arrive at their home.
That's a big deal when you can get the owner of your particular franchise to actually come to your house. Right?
And they will typically ask me what my capacity is.
Yeah.
And I will usually just tell them I'm the director.
They probably want you to be the caregiver, right?
Sometimes, if it's a gentleman, we might be providing care for. But I go into the home. I'll do an assessment of their medical condition, their mental condition, and find out what's relevant to us providing care. Then I will find out what their daily routine is like.
Is there a family member usually there with
There's
them too?
almost always a family member
Okay.
there, and it's almost always a family member that calls me.
Gotcha.
That requests care. Sometimes it's the individual that calls us. But we'll get as much information as we can. But first, I will allow them to ask me any questions that they might have. They have a lot of questions that they haven't asked when they were on the phone. They want to know about our hiring practices. They want to know about what kind of schedule we can accommodate. And finally, they might ask again, even though they may have asked on the phone. They want to know what the cost is going to be.
Sure, and that's natural for anybody to ask. Do you find that the potential client has different concerns than maybe the family member that made the call? Maybe the family member, if they're the ones that are financially responsible, they might be asking different questions.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. The care recipient often will be a little unrealistic about their needs because they still want to remain independent. And we want to promote that independence. We don't want to do anything for them that they can still do themselves, or they'll lose the ability to do those things. But typically they'll paint a prettier picture of their situation than the family member will. And they'll have concerns about fine nuances of their care that their family member isn't going to experience, about just how they're going to be assisted with their shower, if the person's going to cook the foods they like, if they're going to be able to get out to, say, a weekly appointment, a hairdressing appointment or something that they like to go to. They want to know if they're going to still be able to stick to their routine. And sometimes they want to know what it costs too.
Right.
Sometimes they don't care about that because the family member handles that. The family member is usually more realistic about their needs, and we will listen to both of them. And I will always address the care recipient and ask them the questions first, and then if the family member wants to give me the answer, usually they'll chime in. But I always feel it's very important to address the person that we're going to be assisting.
Do they have a tendency to really differ? Do they ever get into little bickering sort of things because the priorities may be different?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Occasionally, and what I will recommend is that we make a little note of those issues and that they potentially discuss those after I leave, so they don't feel pressure to resolve those while I'm still sitting there.
Yeah, it gets awkward, obviously.
It is very awkward, and I've been in that situation before. I've been in situations where actually the care recipient has become profane, and I actually had to leave, because they didn't remember that their loved one made the appointment.
Here's a tough question. If a person, needs the services of visiting angels, is it only a matter of time before they will eventually need more care along the lines of medical, or have to go into something along the lines of a nursing home, or could they really be in a sort of a steady state of I just need a little assistance, but I'm fine otherwise?
No, it's not always
Inevitable?
It's not always inevitable. In fact, most of the time, we assist people at home until they pass.
Okay.
There are occasions where the care recipient will deteriorate and end up hospitalized and may pass away before they get a chance to come home. And there's also instances where we assist somebody till they recover.
I was going to ask you that. Is there a rehab situation where...
Very often.
Okay, so that's okay.
Very often there's a rehab situation where somebody's simply recovering from an illness, and we will assist them till they get to the point where they don't need us anymore. And as much as we like the business and providing the service, if we can help somebody get to a point where they don't need us anymore, we feel really good about that.
Sure. Well, there'll be somebody else that will, need your services, and you'll be there for them. So if one another.
We feel if visiting angels provided them with a great service and they felt good about it, they're going to tell other people too.
Good. Word of mouth, there is no better advertisement
Absolutely.
than that, if you do great work. Now, you have a minimum requirement of maybe 6 hours a week. That's hours-wise, but is there any kind of, do they have to do it for a certain amount of days, weeks, months, kind of a minimum thing for that?
No, we will provide respite care too. We have done that before where somebody may just need us on an isolated set of dates, and we'll provide care for that. If somebody wants to get on a regular schedule, though, we typically encourage them to adhere to our minimum and try to set up a schedule so there's consistency for the care recipient.
Right.
So we're not just coming on arbitrary days, and the care recipient may get confused at that point and not know when we're coming.
Right. Or maybe expecting you, and then you weren't scheduled to be there.
So the consistency is very important for them to maintain a calm well-being and know that there's structure in their life and that they're sticking to their routine and that somebody's coming to help them and they know when they're coming.
We are just about out of time. I want you to give out the website so people can go and learn more.
Okay. www.visitingangels.com/Groton.
All right, that's your local place.
Yes.
What's on the website for people to see, by the way, quickly before we wrap it up?
Well, it tells a lot about our services. It gives our contact information. It gives a description of Visiting Angels history and just all the different types of services we make available to seniors.
All right, Jim Piccione. Piccione. Yeah, I knew
okay.
It was as close as I was going to get it. He's director and also owner of a Visiting Angel. Pleasure having you on the show. We learned a lot today. Thank you. And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. We will see you next time. You can watch this and other shows on our YouTube page, so go check it out. We'll see you next time. Take care.